Joining me today, I have Neil Clark and Shaun Claydon, that's CEO and CFO of Destiny Pharma. Hi guys, thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks, Fran.
Oh,
Good to talk.
Great to talk. Now, just to kick off, for investors that might not be familiar with Destiny Pharma, can you say a little about the company and both your roles?
Yeah, that's great. I'll go first. Obviously, the company's Destiny Pharma PLC. My name is Neil Clark. I joined 4 years ago before we IPO'd in September 2017. And previously, I'd been in other listed companies since the late 90s in biotech, and also another AIM listed company that's doing very well, Ergomed. Like to think got a broad range of experience, but as ever in this business, looking forward and very excited about the potential of Destiny Pharma. Over to you, Shaun.
yeah, hi, Fran. Yeah, so Shaun Claydon, I'm CFO of Destiny Pharma. I joined the business just around 3 years ago. I have well over 20 years experience, initially as an advisor actually in the city, then on to doing CFO roles with both listed and private companies, and with a particular focus on life science companies. So I was very excited to join Destiny. I think we've got real prospects for the company, and I'm very excited about the upcoming next couple of years.
Yeah, and let's go back to obviously about the company. Destiny Pharma is a biotechnology company, originally based Sussex University on the campus there at the Innovation Centre, and has been actually the company as a private company was formed in the late 90s, but since that listing in 2017 has really accelerated its development. And the area we're in is in the area of infection, specifically infection prevention. So these are infectious diseases caused by bacteria. But also we do have one project targeting COVID-19, which is a viral infection. But what we do have is our own XF platform, which is our own discovery, discovered by our Chief Scientific Officer and founder, Dr. Bill Love. But also we brought in other assets, particularly in the last 12 to 18 months. So we've expanded the company, and we have two lead programs, which are late stage clinical assets heading towards phase 3s, which are the final clinical studies needed before you actually have the potential to deliver a product. And at the end of the day, let's remember what we're about here is delivering new, better medicines for patients. The clinical trials are just part of that journey on the way, but we really are excited that we are a late stage company. So the risk is reduced because we're late stage, and the risk is also further reduced because we have two different technologies with our lead assets. One is from our XF platform, and the other NTCDM3 is a different technology, a naturally occurring bacterial spore. So well-focused company, late stage, also with an earlier pipeline and an experienced team with really sort of important milestones in the next year or so ahead.
That's great. So just to understand a bit more about the market you're operating within, you say you're in the anti-infectives market. What does the landscape of this look like? And has it changed at all since the onset of the pandemic?
It's a good point, and definitely, we're very much focused on prevention of infection. So we're not an antibiotic company. We're looking to prevent infections before they really take hold, which is key. And I think one thing, hopefully, we've all learned in the coronavirus pandemic is the healthcare benefits of preventing infections. Obviously, patients don't get sick, and remember, many patients suffering from infections also have other complications, whether they're elderly or they have other diseases, or they're in hospital because they've had a car crash or whatever. The last thing you want on top of that is another infection. And both of our lead programs are targeted at really infections which are associated with hospitals, elderly care homes. So there's a real read across from the terrible consequences of the coronavirus pandemic into our broader approach of preventing infection. We also, as I said, we have a specific COVID-19 program, which is funded by a £800,000 UK government, UK taxpayers grant, which is proceeding well. But definitely that's helped in terms of, I think, for investors and partners and regulators understanding the importance of infection prevention. But also we have another threat out there in the world, I'm afraid to say, which is superbugs. So antimicrobial resistance, AMR, and this has been slowly building in the last really 20, 30 years, partly due to the lack of investment in new medicines, but also due to perhaps the, maybe if I can use the word, misuse of old antibiotics, whereby they've been, in some cases, all thrown around like sweets. And unfortunately, Yeah, superbugs, similar to super rats, are brilliant at adapting to threats, such as just like the virus in terms of the treatments. And what you have developed in the bacterial world are these superbugs, which are poorly treated. And many patients who have had serious COVID-19 infections, which remember, is largely a respiratory viral infection. At the same time, obviously, it weakens their health, weakens their sort of lung infrastructure, and bacterial infections have also joined in with the virus to basically to threaten and attack the patient. So you think that backdrop of antimicrobial resistance, which some people think is more dangerous a global threat than the COVID-19, because it is still there as we move forward, and there's been perhaps a lack of focus as we've had on COVID-19. That's a backdrop to where we are. But parking those two sort of global health threats, which all sound quite frightening, both our lead products actually stand alone as very good new medicines to prevent infections in that sort of hospital market. They're stable, they're safe, we can manufacture them at low cost, and more importantly, the clinical data we have to date shows that they work. They're very good at reducing infection or the threat of infection. So we think we have, independent of COVID or AMR, we have standalone products which will find their place in the marketplace. And as I said, that's the ultimate test, delivering good clinical data, but the ultimate test is, are these products used by doctors and patients in hospitals across the world? Just like any product, does it sell?
Right. And so these standalone products, these are described as 2 late-stage assets. What exactly does late stage mean? And can you address what each asset is targeting exactly?
Yep. No. So the clinical development process, you start, in our case, in the world of bacteria and microbiology, often in petri dishes, very early stage lab work showing that your new drug, new medicine kills the bacteria in a petri dish. And then, of course, you move through into human studies, safety, phase 1. Then in phase 2s, you begin to show real efficacy. So you're working in patients who are ill or in a hospital environment. So you're getting real world data. Now, both of our products now have finished that phase 2 program. So we've got really good data sets showing that they have really worked well in that sort of real world environment. And then the next stage is phase 3s, which is really sort of the ultimate test of really getting out there in larger studies, and again out there in the real world to compare our drug against perhaps a competitor drug, or in some cases, if there isn't a competitor drug, you compare against placebo. So we're entering that final stage of the testing. Obviously, it's drug development, so of course it's a risky process. It's just like digging for oil. It doesn't always work, but we have great data to date, which means we are de-risking the process. Now, our 2 assets, as I said, one of which is called XF73, is targeting the prevention of infections which are caused by a bacteria which lives in the nose, as well as elsewhere on our bodies, but it's called Staphylococcus aureus. And during a serious operation, so when I say serious operation, you're talking about cardiac surgery, hip replacements, spinal surgery, it effectively can jump from the nose into the wound as the surgeon operates and sort of replicate, produce toxins, and you get these nasty post-surgical infections, an example of which is MRSA, which is methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Now, it's relatively rare, but when it happens, as with other infections, as we learned from COVID, of course, the patient can be seriously unwell. You have to keep them in hospital longer. You can have outbreaks. So if a patient has an infection, of course, it can jump into other patients or the hospital staff. So it's a major concern across the world, and best practice across the world, and I've been in hospitals in America, Europe, Japan, is to what's called decolonize the nose, which means before, say, I go in for my surgery, the bacteria in my nose are largely killed. There's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions there. You never kill every single one, but you basically reduce that bacterial load for the period of risk, which is surgery. And our nasal gel, XF73, is a simple nasal gel. You put into the nose 3 or 4 times in that day before surgery. It kills the bacteria, and the best practice is that you do this, you look to decolonize, and of course you remove a significant proportion of the risk of post-surgical infections. So it sits in a whole world of cleaning, doctors washing hands and cleaning surgical theatres, and also body washing patients with body washes to, again, kill that bacterial load before they go in for a risky operation. So we've delivered good phase 2 data. We announced great data earlier in the year. In March 2021 for that program. We're currently waiting feedback from the European regulators and then early next year from the US regulators on phase 3 study design. So we need to establish the exact size of the next studies for this program. But that's a very exciting place to be. As we said earlier, we're heading towards the end game of phase 3 studies. So XO73, it's a large global market. We believe sales can genuinely be $1 billion in peak sales. So this really is a potential blockbuster product. There are tens of millions of patients at risk because they carry this bug in the nose. As they go in for the surgery, they're at risk, and the world needs new products. There's an old antibiotic which is used, or maybe some nasal sprays, but it's a large market, and there's been a lack of innovation in this space. And we're one of the companies at the forefront of bringing forward new medicines for that nasal decolonization. That's one of our lead programs. Then the other program, NTCDM3, is a totally different technology. So again, we've diversified, reduced the risk. That has completed also its phase 2 journey. That is now ready to move forward to phase 3s. And we acquired this almost exactly a year ago. I think it was something like December the 4th. Last year that we closed the financing. So we raised £10.5 million in December 2020, and we bought in a completed package of phase 2 data relating to this program NTCDM3. And this is a oral capsule which you would take for 7 days, and what it is made up of is a naturally occurring bacteria called NTCDM3, which is non-toxigenic Clostridioides difficile M3. That's the strain, and it's a non-toxic strain, so it's a very safe strain that will get into the gut, colonize your gut, and what it will do then is stop a toxic strain of C. difficile from surviving. And the toxic strains of C. difficile cause an infection, again called Clostridioides difficile infection, CDI, and that is a very nasty infection that affects 500,000 Americans, causes 29,000 deaths in America, but also affects patients in Europe. And it's a bug that can get into the colon in patients at care homes, hospitals, and they have it produces toxins and inflames the colon, causes very nasty multiple events of diarrhea. So of course it weakens the patient, and again cross-contamination is rife when you have that type of infection. So this has been developed by a world-leading expert in America, and his idea, which he's proven in early science and now phase 2 studies, was if you can harness a naturally occurring safe strain of M3 of CD called M3, you take it, get your gut colonized with M3, it stops these toxic strains from existing and prevents the recurrence of the infection. And again, that's our target market. So we acquired this package as I said, a year ago. That now where we have the funding, we're manufacturing, scaling up manufacturing and finalizing plans for the phase 3, and that program is more advanced than XO73 because we have clarity from the US regulators. We know that we have to do one 800 patient study, and that's a study that we're planning and looking to start basically a year from now. And again, a very exciting product. The market perhaps is slightly smaller than for XO73, but we still see peak sales in the US of potentially $500 million. And it's a great, very safe, easy manufacturing. When I say easy to manufacture, it's a fermentation, so it's different to XO73, but the manufacturing will be low cost and scalable. And we have great phase 2 data, so class leading data from Professor Girding's work previously reported, and we've now acquired this program, and we're looking to take it forward to again finish that phase 3, and hopefully then of course deliver a new medicine into this marketplace.
Mm-hmm. And just a bit more specifically here, what would a good outcome look like for both phase 3 trials, just put simply?
For XO73, we would look to show, compared to a comparator, that we have less post-surgical infections. Also to show again that we decolonize in the nose. So for XO73, you can count the bacteria before and after in the nose. So we would need to show that again, that we basically kill 99.5% or more of the bacteria, but also then you would follow patients to show that you had less actual infections following surgery. So that's sort of a broad brush of the endpoints there. We expect it again to be very safe and easy to use. And then on NTCDM3, you compare this to placebo. So patients would be given placebo, and then some patients would be given our treatment, M3, and then you would measure the recurrence of the C. diff infection. So patients coming into the clinical study would have had one infection shown that they had the toxic strains of C. diff that caused an infection, they would then be given either placebo or M3, and we would look to see that that rate of recurrence of infection drops significantly with M3. In our phase 2 study, there was a 95% removal of recurrence using M3. So only 5% of patients had a further recurrence episode of the infection. We'd be looking to produce that or similar data in the phase 3.
That's great. And what can you say about your current pipeline in terms of clinical assets and going forward? Any developments here?
Well, we have obviously the focus very much in, from listed companies on the late stage assets, but we have earlier XF programs in dermal infections. So these are infections associated with leg ulcers, diabetic foot ulcers or burns. Our Chinese partner, we have a Chinese partner, they're running their own dermal project as well. These are preclinical projects, but they can also move into the clinic in the next year or so. And we have a government, with our partner Sporgen, we have a government-backed COVID-19 project, which is a nasal spray that you would spray into your nose, and it would stimulates your immune system and gives you protection against COVID-19, but also influenza as well. So our partner Sporgen and us, we're working on that with the University of Liverpool, and again, that program is finishing early next year, and we'll report data on that. But those are some of the earlier programs that we're progressing as well. But very much the focus for us is on our 2 lead programs.
That's great. And what can you say about your financial position alongside advancing this pipeline?
I'll hand over to Shaun.
Right, thanks, Neil. Yeah, so as a company, we're in a pretty robust financial position. I think the latest numbers in the market would be from our interim results, which we announced in August, and we had just over 7 million in cash, which was largely as a result of the fundraising Neil mentioned earlier, which we did in November, December last year to acquire the NTCDM3 asset and to provide additional working capital. So, and that cash, I think we said at the time, takes us out to Q4 2022 in terms of the cash runway. So I guess from where we are today, that's just around another year's cash left, which enables us to sort of progress our programs, as Neil mentioned, and obviously doesn't enable us to fund the phase 3s, and that's part of our one of our key objectives next year is to sort of complete a strategy in terms of funding those assets, and that could be through partnering, obviously equity, and also potentially grants as well.
That's great. And finally, just to wrap up, what can investors expect as we come into the new year from Destiny?
Yeah, well, I think we'll get regulatory feedback on XS73, so we'll have news on phase 3 designs for that program, and that's important because the phase 3 designs will guide us on the size and the cost of those studies. And as Shaun said, one thing that we're looking to do during this year is to secure the financing for one or both of our phase 3 programs, and we're going to do that through completion of discussions we're having, active discussions on partnering. Obviously, classically with a biotechnology company, we need partners for the commercialization. So as we head into phase 3, we believe we have attractive assets which partners will look at, and they are. And then also at the same time, we will look at maybe other funding routes to strengthen the balance sheet, be it through equity or indeed non-dilutive funding such as grants, which we've done in the past. But so definitely looking out for partnering events, further news on progress on XS73, regulatory feedback, and further progress on M3 as we move that towards the clinic. And our early pipeline will also report data. So a lot going on, but obviously 2 key pivotal things to look at always, of course, are the progress that we're making on those lead assets regarding starting 1 or 2 phase 3s in the next 12 to 24 months, and that's a massive step forward for biotech. And of course, the key thing here, perhaps for investors, new and old, of course, is valuation. Now, looking across at America, our M3 asset alone in an American NASDAQ listed company, we believe we'd be valued at several hundred millions. We believe we have great value in the assets, but as ever, it's up to us to prove that and keep delivering the good news that we've managed to do in the 4 years since we've listed. And very excited about next year and how we move forward.
That's great. Well, Neil, Shaun, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ran. Talk again soon.